more and more face-to-face in locales that are pleasant and useful. One of the things that's most interesting to me is that these sites also, these phones can also know everything that the web knows about any particular location, where you are. And as more web content gets geocoded, more and more of what's on the web will be able to be summoned to you. So if you care about history, you care about the current sense of the local population, you care about local schools, where to eat, what would be good, what's good shopping, where do the locals eat, whatever it is that the web knows, you can know through your mobile. And this is one of the places where, in fact, we see the merging. This is maybe the most interesting way that we see the merging of the physical and the virtual. So we've seen other sorts of, we've seen the social network mapped onto a virtual world, and clearly there's benefit to that as well. These are not exclusive things. We want everything. We want everything. And sometimes this is exactly what we want. But now we also increasingly get the real world mediated by the social. And to some degree, we've always done that. And building a city itself is mediating the real through the social. But now this can be done through a virtual layer that knows more and more about your social world, the social world and the world of ideas and knowledge that isn't physically present. Also, one other difference that mobiles bring to the social networking world is that mobiles are getting increasingly smart. And not just because their CPUs are getting bigger, their processing power increases, that matters, but also because they're becoming more and more alert and aware of what's going on around in their environment. They're becoming sensors, sensing devices. And there's no practical limit to how many different types of sensing devices we can put in, starting with weather sensing. I mean, we can do as much as we want. And we will add sensors as it makes sense. And furthermore, because these are network devices, we will get, there are types of sensors that will allow us to aggregate data and get much smarter about some very complex things, including the environment. Also traffic, that's another obvious sort of sensing that we can do. So we have these increasingly aware devices that know about our social network, know about the particularities of our world, and where people and things are located in it. That adds a lot to social networks, social networking sites. There are, of course, limitations and issues that these raise. The most obvious one is that mobiles have relatively small screens, relative to laptops and big displays. And for many of us who are 57, we're coming out of a world in which the best possible computer has the largest possible display. It's, it's bigger than my arm, it's even better. That may be a generational thing. And furthermore, we're getting smarter about user interface design, and the iPhone opened people's eyes up to what could be done with, if you start to really rethink user interface design. We're getting much better at that sort of thing. So the smallness of the screen is becoming less of an issue. Also, the screens are getting bigger. The mobile social networks are proprietary systems, as are most of the social networking sites on the web. That is an issue. It's not just an issue for mobiles, but it's a real issue. These things are important to us, these social networks. They feel very much like ours. We want them to be able to interoperate. We don't want to be stuck in a silo. That's an unnatural constraint. There are efforts to try to get past some of the bad effects of proprietary systems. We'll see how that goes. There's also a very obvious type of fragmentation that's going on. I have way too many mailboxes, inboxes in my life already. I have way too many. You do too. It's not helpful to keep having more and more. We want ways of being able to. There are completely obvious privacy issues. They're actually more intense, perhaps, on mobiles because mobiles know so much more about where you are and what you're doing. They know about your position in the real world. We're addressing, as various cultures, we're addressing these privacy issues successfully or not, but it's obviously a big issue in all cultures at this point. There's an additional privacy issue with mobiles, too, of course, very obvious, which is that you are more likely to leave your mobile on a bus than to leave your desktop PC on a bus. The mobile has a lot of personal information in it, but as we all know. There's a general issue, not just for mobiles, in the world of social networks that we have made, I think, very little progress in resolving. It's actually sort of a mess. I think of it as entropy. I'm not sure that's the best term for it. But, so I'm going to tell you something that I find embarrassing. I don't particularly want blogged. How many of you here are bloggers, by the way? Just a handful? You're almost all in the front row. Interesting. So bloggers, and one person in the last row. So bloggers are at the extremes again. So I'm embarrassed. I have about 1,000 friends on Facebook. I'm embarrassed because, first of all, it sounds like I'm boasting, although I'm not sure 1,000 is a big number. And I'm not. I'm not boasting. I'm embarrassed. The second reason is I have 1,000 friends because I'm a weak character. And so I just say yes to anybody who asks. Because I am afraid to say no. I don't, what will they think of me if I say no? So there are people who I've never met, but maybe read a book of mine, and absolutely, you're my friend. The term friend in this environment, for me, because I've mishandled Facebook. My children do a much better job. On Facebook, their friends much more closely mapped to their actual social network. For me, no relationship at all. And so friend for me on Facebook has virtually no meaning. Sorry, if I friended you and you just found out that the term has no meaning, I'm sorry. This is a very, very difficult problem. It's difficult because the act of friending somebody is not a neutral act. It has an effect. Somebody is pleased or they're hurt that you didn't. This is a Heisenberg thing, right? It's not that you have a social network that you can then map. It's that in mapping it, you are altering the social network. Somebody feels brought close to you because you friended them. So that's one reason it's complex. And the other reason, which I think is more important, is that we don't actually have a taxonomy of friendship. And I don't think in any of our cultures we don't have neat boxes that we can say, oh, this is a friend, this is an acquaintance, this is this sort of friend. We have very, very messy, constantly changing, dynamic relationships. And so the computers want us to have neat boxes. That's just the way they work. They want to be able to say, this is a close friend, and close friends have permission to see these pictures. And this is an acquaintance. Acquaintances have permission to see these pictures. It needs us to do that sort of assignment, but that sort of assignment can be, first of all, destructive to friendships, and second of all, requires a sort of precision that our social world simply resists. We don't have that sort of precision. And so we're stuck, and we don't yet have good answers to this. I haven't found a system, personally, and I don't know, I hope that you can innovate. This is a really, really hard problem to get right. And so far, the best systems just make the best of this messiness that they can. Then, finally, there's what happens to our sense of self in these social networks and in mobile networks. And I want to talk about this just for a moment. There's a lot of talk of convergence. It's an important thing to discuss. It's an important topic. We absolutely do want, convergence of technology, because that just gets in our way. We don't want to have to worry about which system, which device. We just want it all to work. And we can make progress there, but I don't think that we are going to want convergence of selves. That I believe, could be wrong, that we will continue to want to have one self in one social network, and maybe there's another social network that's more for business acquaintances, and we're going to be a different sort of self there, and then we may also have our blog and present ourselves somewhat differently, and have a pseudonym in World of Warcraft, where we present ourselves in a way that our business social network would find horrifying. We want multiple selves. We don't want convergence there. We do want the technical convergence, though. The selves that we have only exist because these online selves only exist because there are different social networks to host them. This is an artifact of having the opportunity to participate in different sorts of social connections. And they depend to a surprising degree upon the particularities of the social networks, the buttons in the elevator. So Twitter, which I'm I really, really love Twitter.